Hey guys, welcome to Homies and Houses. Today we're going to talk about 8 things to factor into analyzing a deal. Number one is determining strategy, and Alana's going to get us started with that.
Yeah, so there are a lot of strategies to consider when buying your first investment or your next investment deal. So just wanted to touch on a few because I have done, so you can do like a BRRRR. There's a good book on that by David Green that talks about the BRRRR method, and they talk about it a lot on the Bigger Pockets podcast, which is the whole reason Rachel and I met was through that podcast convention. Also, you can determine if you want to flip or if you want to do like buy and hold or short-term rental. So I have done everything at least once, and it kind of depends where you're at in your like life and like what you need. So right now I'm trying to determine for a house that I have an offer accepted on, if it would be better for me to flip or better to buy and hold. I know those are the two strategies that would be best for it. But it kind of depends. Like, I like the big lump sum of cash that I can get from a flip. Back in our episode, New Year, New Strategies, I talked about like my New Year, New Strategy thing was wanting to save like 6 months of my income. And so a flip could really help me to get there. But there's also reasons that this particular house would be good to buy and hold. I think the rent would cash flow really well monthly. And so when you're thinking about your next investment, like what do you want? Is monthly steady cash flow like what sounds most appealing to you for like the stage you're at in your life or your investing career? Or is it getting that lump sum of cash? Um, we
Also
actually
factor
really
into like how much time you have because flips take a lot of time. Buy and holds don't take as much time, especially if it's turnkey. Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
It's like with the buy and hold, you're like, okay, well, now I got to search for tenants. And so then we'll get into this in later points. Um, or a flip, it's just like, okay, well, now how fast do I think I can resell this?
Yeah.
um, and whatever. So we'll get into that. But yeah, point one is just where are you at in your life and your investing career and what makes the most sense for you? Because there
Mhm.
are some properties that could go either way. And that's exactly what I'm buying right now. I see the pros, like pros of flipping it, the pros of buying and holding. Those are the two, like I know I don't want to do a short-term rental and stuff like that. But just determining, yeah, what makes the most sense for where you're at in your career and your life right
Yeah.
then. So number two, Rachel.
Study the market. Um, This is something when I moved to Arkansas, it was kind of done intentionally because the market is growing, Bentonville's growing, Walmart is bringing on so many new employees. They're like expanding their campus. So that was a really big draw. And they're bringing in new companies all the time to like, as suppliers. And, from what I understand, all Walmart suppliers need to have offices in Bentonville, and so there's just constantly going to be people coming into Bentonville, and at the rate they're building houses, you'd think that there's gonna be a huge influx of people soon, and that's what we were seeing there too. But it's also, like, relatively safe area, and it's becoming more desirable too because of they're putting in new trails and things like that as well, and yeah, and w the only thing that I think, the Bentonville market isn't great for necessarily is cash flow. It's kinda hard to do cash flow unless you're gonna do a flip, but, like, Alana's market, your market's pretty good for cash flow, right?
Yeah, it's really good for cash flow. Especially because I focus on multifamily, but like, so I'll just, because this is what I'm working on all day, every day right now, I'll just talk about the house that I'm currently buying. So I'm buying in a town where I have two multifamilies there. This will be a single family. But it is the town in my area. I'm pretty rural. I'm about an hour south of Minneapolis. So it is the town, I don't mind saying it for those who know, Owatonna. It typically has the highest rents that you can, as a landlord, that you can charge. There's a couple reasons for that, kind of similar to what you're talking about with Bentonville on a smaller scale than Walmart. But we have Federated Insurance is headquartered here. And so they constantly need like housing for interns. I don't know if that's the right word, but like new insurance agents or interning agents or whatever coming in. Um, and then we have Mayo Clinic is headquartered in Rochester, and that's like world-renowned hospital. And
Mhm.
so a lot of the time, their nurses and stuff are looking for housing, but Rochester is really expensive. And so Owatonna is a pretty like desirable middle ground. It's right between Rochester and Mankato, which also is like a bigger city. And so it's like a really good location for that. And so just I can charge higher rents there. And like that's just what the market is. Where I actually live is 15 minutes away, and the rents are significantly different here, which is
Mhm.
why I have the house I live in here now, but I've never bought like a long-term rental here because I just don't think the cash flow would be as good. And
Yeah.
so just knowing, yeah, like your market, um, yeah, if the population is growing, if jobs are coming in, if it's a good part of town, um, stuff like that. And you moved from Denver. So like when you went to Bentonville, how did you find out like, is there bad parts of Bentonville? Like I feel like there's good and bad parts of every town, but like how did you study that to know because you were new to the area?
I was new to the area. So I went and visited before I moved there, like 2 weeks before I moved there, and drove around and looked at different areas. And I also like I rented before I bought. Like I moved there into a rental. And then after living there for about 8 months or 9 months, that's when I bought my house. I felt like I had a good idea of the areas of Bentonville that I was interested in. There's also like Bentonville, Rogers, Centerton. Like, there's a whole bunch of little towns that are now growing into like I don't know if city is the right word, but they are like all meshing into one big city, really, and that is like Bentonville, I want to say. And then just south of there is Fayetteville, which is a university as well. But so visited Rogers, rented in Centerton because it was one of the cheaper areas to rent. And it's I don't know, we were living at like 20 minutes outside of downtown Bentonville, but still like a great area. And yeah, but I mean, there's definitely like sketchier parts of air or like parts of cities in every city you go to, but I felt like generally Bentonville as a whole was pretty safe. There were areas that I didn't really want to buy in, but um that's
Yeah.
why it's good to go and visit too. I mean, if you have the ability to go and visit, that's really beneficial.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So number 3, this will is something to factor in for sure. It'll be more, I would say, for flips, but it's
Mhm.
determining the ARV. So ARV is after repair value. So what you think you can sell it for after you do the repairs that you want to do or that you feel add the most value. So I do a lot of I'm very type B. We both are. I do a lot of my ARV based on experience. So like I just kind of at this point I've been investing for 4.5 years. I've gotten like a pretty good idea of what things cost. And I use a lot of the same contractors. And so I kind of know like they're going rate or you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I kind of like have a good idea. And what I think is also important is I also overestimate it in my head. I'll say like, I think this is going to cost $10,000. So I'm just going to like pretend it's going to cost 14 or 15,000 for this specific thing. Just to kind of protect myself that way.
Mhm.
But so for example, the purchase price on my new place is 100,000. Oh, I'll get to that at the end. I'm trying not to get off track this time. I'm going to talk about a little bit about that offer and like whatever,
Okay.
how that would be the purchase price.
Yep.
Because I think that's important. But I think that like through experience, which you can also use online calculators. There's a lot of online resources out there to determine a rough ARV. But I'm thinking about 30,000. And that is if I put in a new bathroom that I want to put in. This wasn't just drawn off my experience because I've done a lot of like repairs, but I've only done one full flip. But my realtor for this purchase is his main thing is flips. So he's a realtor, but I would say he's an investor more than a realtor.
Yeah.
And he does flips more than he does long term. And so we kind of like chatted about it when I was looking at the house and he thought it would be like about 30,000. Cause mostly it's cosmetic, but the bathroom is like that big cost. And so I think, okay, cool. I'll purchase it for 100,000, have about 30,000 into it. And that's overestimating a little bit. And then we'll get into this at another point, but I think I could sell it for maybe like 180, probably top dollar 180. And that would be a profit of 50,000 if everything went, um, according to plan. So yeah, just determining based on the comps in the area, like the comparables, like what other houses within a mile are selling for that have the same number of bedroom and bathroom, stuff like that. So that can help determine your ARV. And point number 4, Rachel.
Analyzing rental income. So Alana just mentioned comps, which is a perfect segue into analyzing rental income because comps are super important in analyzing rental income. One of the I you look at what it's renting out now, which isn't always the greatest factor because a lot of the times when someone's owned a rental for a long time, especially if they've had the same tenants for a while, they won't like increase rent as a way to like hold on to those tenants. So current rent isn't always the best thing to base rent on. But you want to look at the other houses in the area, how many beds and baths, how many like what the I don't know. I kind of like looking at the price of the house too. I know that's not like a huge factor in analyzing rental income, but like I definitely think it helps, especially like in the comps of like the how much the other houses are worth, and maybe like if it has a fence or like an updated kitchen versus not, things like that. What else am I missing, Alana?
Yeah, this one factor just for my experience right now is like it doesn't have a garage.
Mm, yep.
Stuff like that. I'm actually across from it's directly across from my triplex. And so
Okay.
I have a decent idea of comps because I kind of like set the price
Yeah.
across the street in a sense. And so this is like perfect to talk about because the person selling it, they said that they were getting 900 for rent. And right now it's a 2-bed, 1-bath. I think you throw some paint and maybe some new floors in there and you could I think they could get more than 900 as is. My
Yeah.
apartment across the street, which is an apartment, and just one of the apartments, I get 2,000 a month.
Wow.
And so like this is like a house. So I don't know. I think that like yeah, just researching, just like you said, I don't think you're really missing anything there.
Yeah.
Um,
Another thing I will add is you can kind of, if you are willing to wait a little bit longer, sometimes you can charge a little bit more. It just might be harder to get tenants. Like when I first bought my duplex, the rent in the area, it wasn't like up to basically all the houses were owned by the same people and they hadn't really adjusted their rent to market in a while. And so I was the only one in the or because I was one of the first ones to buy one of the duplexes that they were selling, I increased rent and it wasn't similar to or like it was a little bit higher than a lot of the other ones in the area, but I felt that that was, more what's the word I'm looking for? More applicable to the house that I was or to the unit I was renting out. And it took me like a month and a half to find tenants, which I think I don't know, some people think is a long time. Others, I mean, if I had charged the same as everybody else in the area, then I probably would have um, it probably would have gone a lot faster. So I think that also plays into like how long are you willing to wait? How long do you want it to be vacant, you know? And sometimes you'll have a house or unit on Zillow for a while and you'll have to decrease rent or, things like that. But um
exactly. It's worth it for the right
yeah.
tenant to wait
Yep.
if you're able
Yep.
to. I wouldn't want to buy a place where I absolutely wouldn't survive if I couldn't wait a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
The triplex I bought in November, I increased the rent. So it was full of tenants when I first bought it, and then 2 were like leaving for whatever reasons. One of the units, they were charging 600 and I get 850. The sellers told me there's
Nice.
no way that I would be able to do that, and it was filled within 5 days.
Wow.
Another unit, they were charging 900. It was like 977, some weird number. But I get 1400. And then the other unit is I'm not changing the rent on that nice old Mr. Rogers man, but it's 400.
Nice.
But yeah, so I didn't go by what they were currently getting. You really have to study your market and know like what you can get for it and make
Yeah.
sure that you're being a good landlord, that it's in good shape, that you're being
Yep.
responsive so that it is worth it. I know
Yep.
my Instagram name is Aspiring Slumlord, but that's just like a play on words. Like it's
Yeah.
ironic because I take such good care of my tenants and they know
Yeah.
that. So they think it's humorous. But
Yeah.
number 5, calculate all expenses. And I would say this is the number one place that new investors miscalculate or mess
Mhm.
up is they get
Yeah.
excited about numbers, but what the cash flow is going to be without really calculating all the expenses throughout like a 12-month cycle. And of course, there's always unexpected as well, but there are those big expenses that are always there that you can plan for.
Yep.
So like property taxes, sometimes it's escrowed into your mortgage, but the lender that I've been using at a small community bank, they don't escrow it. So escrow means like you're paying off your property taxes and insurance and stuff every month within your mortgage payment. So you don't like have to think about it on May 15th. But like three of my places, I have to think about that and plan for it because I have to pay my property taxes separately than my mortgage. So property taxes, insurance. I don't have any experience with like homeowners association fees, but that's something you might have to factor in depending on the situation. Um, I personally like am really big into multifamilies. I think it's a really great strategy to mitigate risk. But like then I'm paying the utilities. And some multifamilies will have the units metered separately so they can pay their own, but many don't. And it's very expensive to have them to get them metered separately. And so I would rather just like factor into my rent that I'm charging them, enough to like cover utilities. So you have to factor that in. Up in Minnesota, at least, snow removal can be a lot. Lawn care can be a lot if you're hiring that out. So really factoring in all the expenses and taking a look at the big picture before just saying, oh, well, my mortgage is this and they're paying this. So that means I cash flow 500 a month. Well, like, do you really? And so just
Mhm.
like, I mean, that's great. But like also knowing you might actually be breaking even, and that's okay too. You're still building equity.
Yeah.
But just like being aware of all the expenses because I messed up there as a new investor. I just got excited about the numbers right in front of me and didn't really think about the rest. And
Yep.
it worked out. Like it works out for me, but I wasn't cash flowing as much as I thought I would at the beginning.
Yep.
So
Definitely.
yeah,
And overestimate expenses too. Because anything less is great, but you don't want to get caught in like a oops, I forgot to, factor in vacancy and or maybe I factored in vacancy, but I factored in like not as much vacancy as I should have. So now I'm getting screwed on that. So
yeah.
definitely overestimate expenses.
Another reason
Um
I love multifamilies, another plug for that.
yes.
It's a
Yeah,
lot safer as far
yeah,
as risk.
for sure. Definitely. Especially if you're investing in your area where one side of the duplex covers the whole mortgage.
It does.
Yeah.
All three of my multifamilies, one unit covers the whole mortgage.
Wow, that's
Not
insane.
necessarily utilities as well, like another unit might like do some utilities, but all of
Yeah.
that is how I set it up though. Like when I decide what to charge for rent, I'm like, okay, what's my mortgage and could the market would it make sense for one unit to cover it all? And that's like I do that analysis in this process to make sure. That's how I determined in my new one from November to charge 1,400 for one. My mortgage is 1,342 a month.
Wow.
So I'm like, okay, well, it's a really nice unit and someone will pay it. Let the
Yeah.
market decide. If no one's renting it, then I'm wrong. Then
Mhm.
I need to adjust. But if they're going to
Yep.
pay it, it's obviously worth it. So
Yep.
like
Definitely.
the free market. Yeah.
All
Next.
right, number 6, cash flow, equity, both. I think also appreciation could be factored in there too. Um, those are kind of like the 3 main factors that people, decide on. You kind of normally choose one, that you're gonna focus on, because eventually they will get all 3. You will gradually get equity. Cash flow will come hopefully if like because rent is always increasing, so you will end up getting cash flow eventually. But sometimes you can front load the cash flow, but maybe the appreciation isn't as fast, um, or maybe you don't care about appreciation because you're going to sell it off anyway. Um, and then equity, you'll build equity, but it's just a matter of like how fast.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
would say that I've really bought for like we've talked about this before. Like I
Mhm.
think I really bought immediate cash flow.
Mhm.
And then you bought for more like appreciation because you're like not cash flowing yet. but
Mm-mm. Well,
I mean, you will
I
be
yeah,
eventually.
I will be eventually, like, or I will be soon. I'm vacant. One of the sides is vacant right now, so I will cash flow once I get, that side filled, but it won't be very much at all for the first year or so, but rents always go up,
But when you
so
first bought, you were, like, thinking, like, "I'm buying for, like, appreciation, equity,"
Mhm.
like, tell us your
Yeah,
thought process on when you bought, because you already explained, like, why you bought in Bentonville,
yeah,
but just go a little bit deeper on, like, why you didn't necessarily care about immediate cash flow, but, like,
because
why
I
it was worth
yeah,
it.
definitely. So I had a job and I was living in one side and renting out the other, and in Bentonville, again, I don't really think that it's, like, fair to or not fair. I don't think that it's reasonable to look for a duplex that one side is gonna pay for the full mortgage, and so I was like, as long as I pay less than half of the mortgage, like, I'm okay with that, because then because both sides are the same, so once they're both rented out, the mortgage will be covered and I will cash flow a bit, but, that was kind of my and also because the first one, I kind of just wanted to make my retirement plan, you know? Um in 30 years, I will be 55 and it will be paid off. And I can either sell it or just live on, or just like have that rental income. So for me, like, and because Bentonville's growing and the house I bought is 7 minutes from downtown Bentonville, um, appreciation was a big factor. And even in the past few months, I keep getting these from my mortgage lender. I get these emails once a month about like my equity and the appreciation and it's really fun to look at how much appreciation has happened in the past few months. So
Oh, I bet. Yeah, this was a really smart buy. We started for, like, kind of, like, different strategies, different reasons at the beginning,
yeah.
but the more I hear about Bentonville, because I follow, like, Henry Washington and stuff too, and, like,
Mhm.
he'll post about, like, Arkansas in general. I'm
Yeah.
like, "Man, I wanna go to one of those meetups. I wanna find a place down there."
Yeah. I mean,
I think
I
it's a
found my
really, really good
realtor.
market to buy in if you can.
Yeah, definitely. I found my realtor through a meetup, and it's fun because there are a lot of people who are into real estate investing in Arkansas. There's so many realtors who invest in real estate themselves, and yeah, and Henry Washington, there's like a few people that go to the meetups that like they're all like contractors and plumbers, and so like you go to one meetup and you have your whole team already built
Yeah.
because you know, they're either doing it themselves or they like work a lot with investors, so they just try and get more investors, you know.
Mhm.
Um but yeah. And then so you went for cash flow. Why'd you go for cash flow?
Um, well, I think it was just so desirable to me to, like, just have more money per month. Like, I don't know.
Mhm.
I'm trying to think back and put myself in that headspace 4.5 years ago. But it was just really nice because I started house hacking in a duplex. And
Mhm.
so it was so nice just, like, not paying my own mortgage. But in 2021, prices were, like, it was a more competitive market, and so there wasn't a lot of, like, buying, like, with a lot of equity in it because someone's gonna
Yeah.
beat you out if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just more, I think, like, what the market was determining.
Mhm.
And but it really worked out for me because I never, like, had to pay my own mortgage, and so I was able to save, and, like, that's what got the snowball rolling. Um but yeah, I love just having the extra cash flow a month to save and to, like, keep buying. I feel like it was a really great segue into my investing career.
Yeah.
Cash flow, maybe I don't want to say it can be faster to get the ball rolling, but, like, also cash flow is, like, it's great if you're responsible with it. But if I'm taking that extra cash flow and, like, I've had months like this where I'm just being like, "Oh, well, now I'm gonna go to Florida and, like, spend it all because, like, what's it to me?" It's pretty passive, and that's great, like, but it's more beneficial if you're, like, investing it and saving
Yeah.
it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Number 7, analyzing financing structure. So there are a lot of different intricacies to financing and what's best. Situation I'm in now with my lender, he's like, "Hey, yo, what are you going to do with this property?" And I'm like, "I honestly don't know for sure." Because there are reasons, and this doesn't happen with a lot of properties, where it would be a really good flip or it'd be a really good rental. It kind of depends, like, once I get into it. If it starts, if I'm digging into it and it starts to be more than like that 30 grand that I estimated for repairs, then it's probably a better rental because I will get my money back eventually. If it's well under that 30, then it's probably a really good flip because I can profit maybe more than the 50,000. So I told him
Mhm.
like, just kind of want to get into it. However, presenting it as a flip because you can get better financing options. So most lenders will, for a flip, it's less risky for them because they're like, okay, well, we should get our money back soon rather than like over all these years. So they will finance typically 90% of the purchase price and 90% of renovations. And so like my down payment is 10,000. So if I went to him, sorry, this is confusing. If I went to him and I'm like, hey, I'm going to rent this out 100%, he'd be like, okay, we'll finance 80% of the purchase price, and I would come up with 20 grand. If I am flipping it, which I very well might be, they will fund 90%. So I only have to come up with 10 grand. So that's a better financing option for me if I want to come with less liquid cash. Also, they will finance 90% of rehab. And so they'll finance 27,000 of rehab and I come up with like 3,000 or whatever.
Mhm.
Um, so that is a good option. Like when you're considering what works better for you between flip and rental, what works better for your financing as well. If you're in a situation like I am, where you're just like, I don't, it could really go either way. There's also DSCR loans. Those are nice because I've actually haven't used one. I just know about them. They don't take like your income into account necessarily. They look at the deal itself and say, hey, yes, we think this house will make X amount. They study the deal, not you. And then they will lend to you based on if they think it can make money. Interest rates are typically higher with a DSCR loan, but if you're flipping, like usually, hopefully, the flip isn't taking super long. Maybe from buying to selling it 9 months, something like that at the most. Um, so DSCR loans are nice. If it's your first purchase, like your first, like my duplex, it was like an investment because I was renting out the other side, but it was also my primary home. So I got like better like interest rates and loan options. I think I forgot if it was 3% or 5% now. But yeah, what did you do for your financing? It was your first.
Yeah,
Oh,
I got a conventional. First time home programs sometimes force you to get more expensive inspections, and although with some of them you can put less down, I had enough to put down that that wasn't necessarily a factor. Sometimes the first time home programs allow you to put less down, but then the interest rate is slightly higher. And then they also have limitations sometimes on like rental income, and I don't know, like renting it out sometimes can be a little bit sketchy. And so, um, yeah, I worked with my lender and did some sort of conventional loan. Um, but another thing that I looked into a lot, and I don't know, I think this is kind of fun if you're just kind of playing with the idea of getting a rental or like getting into real estate investing, is you can go on Zillow and message all the realtors, the people that like are trying to sell these houses, and be like, "Hey, like, are you open to seller financing?" Because when I
yeah.
was first thinking about it, I was like, I don't know. I would love to put this amount down so that I could, whatever. And I did get a few people that were like, "Yeah, we'd be open to it. Like, what kind of terms are you looking at?" So I definitely do research about like terms of loans and maybe like structures that people have done before. I'm sure like Reddit is my favorite thing for these types of questions because this is like personal experience and so many people have done stuff like this. But that can be an option because then like if you don't have as much as you want to put down, like people will still work with you. Like especially right now, like this it's a lot harder to sell some of the houses. Like one of the Bigger Pockets guys just did a video on like, "Oh my gosh, it's so hard to sell houses, all these things, and people are freaking out. What about a crash?" It's really just harder to sell houses. He said it was fine, like it's just the flow of the market and whatever. But yeah, if someone's struggling to sell, like they're definitely um or they might be a little bit more desperate and more open to things like that.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, mine was conventional.
Mhm.
Um,
Like in 2021, they didn't have to be open to things like that.
mhm.
But just
Yeah.
like you're saying, now it's harder, so they're gonna be adjusting, like, their expectations,
Mhm.
because they just wanna sell their house, and so I
Yeah.
would say, yes, be very open to the possibility of asking about seller financing. Like, don't be afraid to ask. The worst someone can
Yeah,
say is no. And
exactly. Yeah,
if you're
and
willing
you
to be an
might end up
investor,
get
you gotta ask some crazy
mhm.
questions sometimes.
Yeah, you might end up getting a lower interest rate too, or they might be open to seller financing 50% instead of just 20, or, like things like that too. Um, at a lower interest rate, or maybe like, yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways to structure it, and yeah, but definitely it's an option. Yeah. Okay, so number 8 is an exit strategy, just in case. How long could you afford um the house if it was vacant? Alana, did you have an exit strategy? I didn't really have an exit strategy. I had an emergency fund and, kind of like plans for vacancy, and things like that, but I didn't have an exit strategy. Like when I went in to buy the house, like I was like, I'm going to hold this until either I get to a point where I'm going to change my full strategy or I retire.
Mhm. I've thought, very positively like that as well, where I'm just kind of like,
Mhm.
well, I'm just planning to keep it. But
Yeah.
I will say again, another plug, both me and Rachel have multifamilies. So
Mhm. Yep.
it's not as scary, I would say,
Yeah.
the need for an exit strategy when you have a multifamily because one side can pay all or most of the expenses. And like, I doubt, unless you suck as a landlord, that both your tenants are going to vacate the same month. That's why
Yeah.
leases are important as well. So you can guarantee kind of having that exit strategy or knowing like how long they're going to be there.
Yeah.
Um, but also, yeah, like you just said, just planning like, okay, like if this were to happen and I was totally vacant, or if you have a single family and you're thinking that, so that's kind of how I'm thinking in terms of this new house. It's a single family.
Mhm.
How long could I afford it comfortably? Like if I can't sell it, or if because like also vacant houses are higher insurance. Like if you're
Mhm.
flipping a house because they're vacant, they're higher insurance. Like no one's always there to know if like a fire were to start or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I would say just like thinking about it in those terms, which I've started to do. Um, and like, how am I trying to say this? I have an exit strategy. This sounds really bad in life, not in life. Okay. I think in my head, not even just house wise, but like if something were to happen and like I just got in this like crazy amount of debt for some reason, everything, all my boilers, everything that could possibly go wrong went wrong on all my properties at the same time. I have this like comfort in my head that I can always sell one because now I've
Mhm.
built equity, um, and like a decent amount of equity in a few of my properties where I'm like, I could sell it. I don't want to. Like, that is
Yeah.
not my chosen strategy, but it gives me comfort and peace of mind, I guess is the right word to
Mhm.
use, to know that I could always sell one if needed.
Yeah.
Um, but I would just say, yeah, determining like knowing your insurance, knowing the property taxes, taking all those expenses into account, and then knowing if worst comes to worst and this is empty for 6 months, which typically people need a place to live. If it's
Yeah.
a decent place to live, it's gonna fill.
Yeah.
Just what you could afford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have an emergency fund is I
Oh
don't
yeah.
it's
I'm the
definitely
worst
not
at that.
an exit strategy, but I think that having an emergency fund is super important because like it, it things are gonna go vacant and you're gonna, but maybe putting some of your cash flow towards future months rent, like as a just in case, like, you know, or putting it in an account so that if you yeah, things like that.
Notice
And
I'm the
yeah.
worst with the emergency fund, so I didn't mention that. Seriously, I'm the worst. Like I'm so that is still my goal. If I flip this house, I can have a big emergency fund like there. But yeah, see, that is literally that's an important one, guys. See, I like to be very honest. I don't want to talk about things I don't. So,
Yeah,
but
emergency fund is such a safety for me, a safety net. Like, yeah, because also like, what if you lose your job, or I don't know, so you get sick and you need to take time off or things like that. Like, just an emergency fund is so important for me, as like a safety net. But I mean, everybody has their own. You do you, girl. Everybody has their own ways of going about things. If you feel comfortable with the amount you're making every month, then like,
yeah. Yeah, I'm still am working on it, but yeah. But yeah, well, I hope everyone learned something in our 8 things to factor in when analyzing a deal. So let us know if you have any questions. We are happy to help. We're also soon going to be accepting some coaching calls to talk
Mhm.
through the steps about your personal situation or a real life deal that you might want help analyzing. So
Mhm.
see you next time.